Hey guys, I'm Brad Wilson with Wild at Heart Wilderness, and today we're going to talk about containers. Um, containers, or a container, is the last item that we're going to be talking about in this series of the 5 C's, or I guess I should say the last category of items. It's definitely not going to be the last time we're going to be discussing the 5 C's, because the 5 C's, you have to understand, is the foundation to what we do as bushcrafters, as woodsmen. So we're definitely going to see these things come up again over time, and there's so many different types of each item of the 5 C's. There's so many different options that you can choose from. Your cutting tool doesn't just have to be a knife. It could be an axe, a tomahawk, a saw. Combustion, you want as many items as possible when it comes to combustion. We talked about those 3 main items: the lighter, Bic lighter, ferrocerium rod, and a magnifying glass or lens. Those are the 3 you should keep with you at all times out in the wilderness. But it's good to practice with flint and steel and to carry a flint and steel set. And those sort of things. So it's good to be redundant with the 5 C's. So definitely we'll be covering the 5 C's again over time. Containers are something that are very essential. All of the 5 C's are important, but a container is something that should not be neglected, because it allows you to carry things and contain things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to carry, just in your hands, or even a bag for that matter. The most obvious thing that we carry in a container is water. Whether it's a water bottle like I've got here, or a bush pot, or coffee percolator, as we'll discuss here in a minute. Those things are good for carrying water. You could carry water in a bag if you had to, but it's more of a chance of it leaking and things like that. So a container is better for that. Containers are also good for boiling the water, cooking and making medicines. You can carry an ember in them. You can char material in them, and all of these are going to be better if they're metal. I have to clear that up. You can do all of those things if your container is metal. Containers in general, not just metal containers, but containers overall, have been used since the beginning of time. Since you're just like the rest of the 5 C's. Early people made containers out of wood. They made them out of the skin, or the internal intestines, or different organs like the stomach or the bladder from animals to make containers. It's mentioned in the Bible several times how they used wineskins back then. They referred to them as wineskins. And what it was is it was the skin from an animal, usually a goat or something like that. They would take the rawhide. They would sometimes, I think they would smoke it or something like that. It was some kind of process where it would preserve the hide, and then they would line that with some type of sap or resin, or sometimes a goat bladder or something like that, to make it into a wineskin, something that would hold wine. They would also do the same process to carry water. A Bota bag, if you just Google a Bota bag, many of you probably recognize what that is or know what it is. Basically, it's a modern take on a very ancient process where they would contain water, carry water in a bladder. We're saying containers can be used for lots of different things, not just containing the water that we need, but also for carrying an ember. That's something that's very basic in survival, that you need, that a lot of people don't think about, but it's a very good thing to know how to do, is learn how to create an ember. Once you've got an ember, to learn how to take that ember and carry it, because you may find yourself in a situation where you have to do that. You may have to carry that ember with you so that you can start a fire wherever you're heading. And people have been doing that for centuries. It's thought that the first fire may have been created through that process of transfer, what's called transfer fire, I guess. In other words, fires happen naturally at one time. Or, I mean, I guess they still do. You hear of out in California, forest fires and stuff taking place. So it's nothing new. And just, people at one time, they'd see that. And then after a fire has happened, they would take the coals or the burning embers, carry them with them, keep them smoldering, and then create a fire with that later on. That's what the scientific world likes to say, that's what the first fire happened. And I guess that's likely. But me being a Christian, believing that more than likely Adam and Eve had to build a fire at some point, I like to think that maybe God, imparted something to them, gave them the knowledge, or even showed them how to make fire. I think that's possible. So the idea of carrying an ember to start a fire, I think, comes up if we look in the Bible in Genesis 22. I have to find the verse real quick. Abraham is being tested by God pretty much. He's going to sacrifice his son Isaac for God. God's basically testing Abraham's faith at this point. So Abraham's, obviously he's hesitant of it, but it talks about him, getting everything ready and stuff. And let's see, it says Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac. Let's see. Here, yeah. In his hand he took the fire and the sacrificial knife, and the two of them walked on together. Other translations say that he carried the fire. And so how do you take fire in your hand? How do you carry it? You can't just grab flame, burning coals or something like that in your hand. You have to carry it somehow. And so I started thinking about that. Either he carried a bow drill set or some type of friction fire set, a flint and steel, or they may have not, I'm not sure if they had flint and steel at that point, but they did have iron pyrite, which was kind of similar to, I guess, what our steel would be, or they would use it in the place of what we would now use steel for. They would have flint and this iron pyrite, or I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but they would use that, and they could make fires in a very similar way, similar to the way we do with flint and steel. So I thought that maybe that was it. But then my other thought was that maybe he carried it in a container, and that seems very likely. Any of these are possible, possibilities that he could have carried any of these items, but it seems more likely to me that he probably had some type of container. They would have had set up a camp wherever they went. He probably grabbed some type of coal or something from the campfire from the night before. And I think this mountain that they went to was probably like a 3 days journey, because it says something on here like the third day. So they would have set up camp, built a fire that night, before they would have started their journey. So it's likely he would have kept an ember from the fire, put it in a container, and had that smoldering while they walked up to the top of the mountain for the sacrifice. So, looking back, I like to think about the things that we discuss, as woodsmen, things that we practice, and try to find it in the Bible and see, not just look at it from a biblical point of view, but also from a historical point of view, because the Bible is a very historically accurate book, because nothing in it is false. It's all completely true. So you can gain that kind of understanding and perspective of how people did things back then, that far back in history. So I thought that was a neat little thing to think about and share with you guys. So anyway, I've got two containers here. Yeah, it's still warm. I've got two containers here I'm going to discuss. First of all, before my water gets cold, I think it's still pretty hot, what I'm going to do here is share with you guys how to make pine needle tea. Right now, it's February. It's pretty cold in the winter. Cold and flu season is around, and pine needles are very high in vitamin C. In fact, there is actually more vitamin C per per weight in pine needles, as compared to an orange or freshly squeezed orange. There's more pine needles, or more vitamin C in pine needles than it is, orange juice basically. So it's a very good source of that vitamin C. There's also vitamin A in pine needles. I've never read for myself, but I've heard recorded accounts of the colonial people here early in America. Actually, that some of them suffered from scurvy, which is a vitamin C deficiency problem. Basically, they didn't have vegetables and fruits and things like that. They just had meat and bread and that sort of thing. So a lot of them would suffer scurvy, and I'm not sure exactly what's all took place in scurvy. I think it was like a nervous system problem. I think there was other effects, but basically it was a lack of vitamin C. That was also suffered a lot by sailors, because all they could carry with them was dried goods, and again, they couldn't have the vegetables or anything. But anyway, vitamin C, the vitamin C in the pine needles was thought to have cured that at one time for the early people suffering that. So, it was used widely by Native Americans and early colonists in this country. So what you want to do is you want to go out and you want to find some pine needles. I've got some here, and they say it's best if you can get them off of a young tree. I just picked these up this morning, and I got these off of a small tree that had been cut down at the off of the game reserve. They do regular maintenance there on trails and things, and this tree, even though it had been cut down, I think it had just been cut down a couple of days ago, because this stuff is still really bright green. So, you can still smell it. It smells like pine. Kind of has a turpentine-y kind of smell. But this is still pretty fresh right here. So I had no problem picking that off of that tree that was cut. It was gonna die anyway, so I'd rather take it off of a tree like that than a live tree, But anyway, I've got probably about, 16 ounces, a little more than 16 ounces of water that I took off the stove earlier, a few minutes ago. You want it just hot enough to where you can stick your finger in it and stand that it's hot. Some people say bring it right up to a boil, and as it's about to boil, take it off. So I'm not really sure. This is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm not really sure how much to cut off of this. I've got 2 limbs here. I think just this one right here will be fine, but I don't really know for sure. But I'm going to cut these off. And you don't want any dead or brown pieces here. You want just the needles themselves. So I'm going to cut these off. And so I'll just go ahead and discuss with you guys, talk to you guys about containers again while I'm doing this. I've got 2 containers here. The one that we're going to be fixing our tea in is what's called a bush pot, or really it's a coffee percolator. I got this at Walmart. I think it was Walmart many years ago. I've had it for several years, really before I even knew what bushcraft was. It's a really good, just simple open container. It's also got a thing that sticks in there. I guess it's the percolator itself, where you would put coffee in it, the coffee grounds in it, and it would make coffee for you. But you can take that out, and then you're left with just an open, I don't know if you guys can see down in there, but it's just leaves you with just an open container, so you can cook in it, you can boil meat, potatoes, whatever you want to in it. So it's a very versatile container. That's why I like it so much. It's got a strainer here with a spout, so I can pour things out and strain it for making medicines and things like that. I don't have to worry about messing up a bandana or anything, or a shirt or anything like that, trying to strain it off. So I really like the bush pot idea. I think it's really good because, again, it's versatile. You can do so many different things with it. I'm going to get some of these small brown pieces out of here. And then the other container I have here is from Pathfinder School, or from Self-Reliance Outfitters. This is a metal water bottle that's 32 ounces. Comes with a nesting cup that holds about 25 ounces. So that gives you 2 containers there in sort of in one package. And this actually comes with a top here. I don't have the top with me right now, but the top is pretty nice. It has holes in it for, you know, straining and things like that. It's got some butterfly handles or batwing handles, whatever they're called. But both of these containers give you ample room to cook in this. You could cook something in this just as well. And then you've got your water here, so you know you can drink water out of that, eat your food or whatever out of that, and that'll serve you very well. The good thing I really like about this bottle, not just because it's from Self-Reliance Outfitters, it's not only the reason why I bought it, but I also got this bottle because it holds 32 ounces exactly of water, and it's metal. A lot of 32 ounce water bottles on the market today are not metal. So, you know, you can't really cook in them or boil water directly over the fire. So, you know, you want it to be metal. That's your first priority in a container. Any container, you want it to be metal. But the fact that it's 32 ounces as well allows you to take, you know, like an iodine tablet, just, you know, the whole thing, and put it in there, and you're done. There's no guesswork with it, you know, because iodine tablets oftentimes, you know, for them to work properly, to disinfect your water, it has to go into, you know, I think it's a liter, whatever 32 ounces equates to. I think it's per liter of water. Whereas, you know, a lot of other water bottles that might be 24 ounces or something like that, you gotta cut the tablet in half and, you know, do some measuring and things like that. But with this, you know, you just throw it in there and you're done. So I really like that idea. But the two of these coupled together is a perfect cooking container system. You know, having the water bottle, the nesting cup, and the bush pot. That's my favorite setup right there. But I think our water is getting cool enough. It's still pretty hot. Yeah, I can stick my finger in there and it doesn't scorch me or anything, but it's still pretty warm. But I think I've got enough. I'm going to save this for later. I think I've got enough here. This is really good right here. So I'm going to just take this. I think I'm going to chop these up a little bit finer than this, actually. I got to talking and forgot. But you want to chop these up, put it in here, and just let this steep for about 15 minutes, I think it is, maybe 10 minutes. It may not even take that long. I think I might just try it after 5 minutes. But I'd say probably 10 or 15 minutes is a good, you know, just a good thing to go by as far as time. And this is going to just be really good for you because it has that vitamin C in it. A lot of times, you know, if you're out in the wilderness, it's hard to find vegetables and things like that. You just don't have that out there. And if you're in that type of situation, and you're trying to survive, or even if you're just out there bushcrafting, you know, and you don't have many vegetables or things like that that have vitamins in them, this is a good alternative for that. And I think this is actually, you know, something that will help you medicinally as well. And they say for this to really work well in combating a cold or something like that, to drink 8 ounces of this pine needle tea, I think 2 to 3 times a day, you know, for like a week or something like that. So I've got that in there. I don't know if you can see that, but they're sitting in the water now. And now I'm just going to let that sit for about 10 minutes or so. I'm going to cover this so that the steam doesn't escape. And when I've let that steep for a while, I'll get back up with you guys and we'll see how it tastes. So stay with me. Alright guys, so this has probably been steeping about, I'd say, at least 5-10 minutes, something like that. And it smells, it has that real good pine needle smell. I've also got some things I'm going to add to this. I've got some, it says it's 100%, pure natural honey. I don't know if it really is. I got this up in the mountains back in like October or something. Still got they fix it up there where it's got the comb in it. Again, I don't know if this stuff is the real deal or not. I would think probably not, but I don't know anybody who keeps bees and has any honey on hand, real honey, but I've got that. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to strain this off. I've got a coffee filter, just a coffee filter here, and if you were out in the wilderness, you could use a bandana or something like that, but I figure a coffee filter would work best for inside the house. I've got a strainer on this bush pot, but yeah, there you go. There's a few pieces that already fell out of that, but that strainer still lets things pass through. Whoops. Oops, I got a few things in there. Let me pour that back in there. It won't hurt nothing, but I don't really. It's kind of like having coffee grounds in your coffee. I don't really want to taste it. This thing's not too hot. I think I can pour it one-handed. See if I can get this where you guys can see it. Yeah, and just let this strain. Then I'll add this honey, and then I've also got some cinnamon here too. And both of those are also very medicinal. Honey is a good antiseptic. You can put it on a wound. It'll have that healing property. It's a good. I've heard that if you mix it with water, warm water, that honey can serve as a mild laxative. In cases where you might be constipated or something like that. Let that kind of go down. It's kind of wanting to pull up a lot. Trying to think what else, just off the top of my head. There's lots and lots of things that honey is good for. It just boosts your energy. It's really one of nature's superfoods, kind of like an egg. And then cinnamon. I've heard that cinnamon helps with nausea. It helps kind of calm and settle your stomach if you're having troubles and problems with being nauseous. And then there's other properties to cinnamon that are really good and will serve you well. I think I've got most of this in here. For some reason the rest didn't want to strain well. Wow, that was pretty much spot on there. I didn't even measure that, but that filled this thing up almost to the brim. So I got about almost 25 ounces of this. That's quite a bit. But I'm going to add, let's see, probably, this is like a teaspoon. I'm probably going to add maybe 2 of these, maybe 3. Make it good and sweet, which I don't want to take away from the pine needle tea flavor since I've never had this before, so I may just do 2 teaspoons. The only bad thing about honey is kind of hard to work with. It's having that gooey consistency, but it's worth it, definitely. Honey is something that's good too if you want to. A good thing to carry with you if you're trying to figure out what's some good, food or items to carry with you, because it stores very well. In fact, honey will never go bad on you. They have actually found, I guess archaeologists have found crystallized honey that was 1,000 years old, and when they rendered it back to its kind of original state, it was just as good as when it was produced. Whoops. Now I'm going to add, I don't know how much cinnamon, just till when I feel like I got enough. That's probably, I'd say, 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. Try to stir this up real good. I got some pouring out of that hole there where a handle would normally go, but that's no problem. Try to stir this up. Alright, see what this, oh man, it smells amazing right now. It smells woodsy. I don't know how to explain that, but it smells really good, guys. Oh man. Oh man, that is good right there. Oh brother, man, that is good. Fellas, you need to fix some pine needle tea. I think it might just be psychological. Half of it's probably psychological, but it's just like, you know, instantly makes you feel good. It's one of those things. I don't know how to explain it, but it tastes like pine needles. I've never had pine needles before, but you know, your sense of smell is really closely directed to your sense of taste. So oftentimes, you know, even though you've never tasted something before, just by smelling something, you can kind of get an idea of what it might taste like. A lot of times people don't realize that, but you know, especially when you taste this, you know, you've smelt pine needles all your life, and then you taste it, you think, yep, this is pretty much the way it smells. Pretty much what I envisioned it to taste like, but a little bit better. I mean, especially with that honey and that cinnamon, it's perfect, guys. And that's another thing that I am amazed by, that there's so many things in nature that if you look at, you know, so many different trees and things that provide for us, you know, medicines and properties that are healing to us, and just things that are good for our bodies. You know, God created those trees and those plants, you know, and the honey that comes from bees and things like that that are good for us. He provided those things for us. The trees that have all these properties and the plants that have those properties and things like that were created completely, I believe completely for our benefit. You know, God is all-knowing. You know, God didn't intend for man to become sinful and fall and for the world to become the way it is. I don't think man, or God, I should say, intended for man to ever have to survive. But it's almost like, you know, He provided for us so that, you know, knowing that we would end up having to survive and things like that, it's there for us. And so I think it's just a wonderful thing to think about. This is good. Alright guys, so I thank you for joining me today for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I know I have. I'm enjoying it right now as we speak, really. But it was fun, you know, doing this for the first time. I've never made pine needle tea before, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep continuing to do. So anyway, I thank you guys for all your support, all your comments, all your views. I'm Brad Wilson, as always, with Wild at Heart Wilderness, and until the next one, get out in the woods and be wild. Thanks, guys.